Today, what's really fun is that we're featuring a different group of leaders in the making. We have a wonderful mix of students, both undergraduates and graduate students, who are involved in a wide range of projects. And one of the great things about my job, and the job of most faculty and staff at a university, is the opportunity to help students develop the skills, experience, and insights that can open the doors to rewarding careers and passions, careers in which they are making a difference to create a brighter future in and beyond Maine. And so we've got a lineup of 7 different talks. They're come in real short little segments, 5 minutes, and we'll even kind of have to nudge them at the 4-minute mark to make sure we stay on time. We're going to save all the questions and discussion till the very end. I'll just introduce each talk very briefly so I preserve most of their time. I'm already ahead of schedule by a few seconds, so I'm going to move on. But I do want to just say, particularly for the audience on Zoom, just a few things to remember. Keep your camera switched off, your microphone's muted. We welcome your questions. Please add them to the chat. And since you're going to hear about different talks all the way along, add them at any point. And I have a wonderful colleague in Linda Silka who's going to facilitate the discussion and Q&A of the Zoom audience, and I'll be here in the room. So just get my attention if you have questions, and you're going to have to kind of remember who your question's for, though maybe you have some general questions for everybody, which would be fun too. We have Zoom presenters as well as presenters in the room, so we'll keep.
Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Baker, and I am a graduate student working solutions on developing the Maine Circular Food System map and resource locator tool. One of the big problems in Maine is food waste. Approximately 40% of food produced in Maine is never eaten, which means that Maine wasted approximately 200,000 tons of food in 2019. Food was the largest part of the solid waste stream at 30%. And the majority of this food ends up in trash and landfills, wasting money and wasting valuable resources. So how do we fix the food system? Well, the way we propose to fix this food system is within a hierarchy based on solution 4 of fixing Maine's food system. We reduce unwanted food by feeding people, animals, and composting this food. So we need a tool that will support this waste reduction hierarchy. What is this tool? Well, this tool is meant to connect local food system stakeholders, farmers, processors, distributors, retailers, consumers, charitable feeding partners, food waste recyclers, etc., to create a circular food system where food is never wasted. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what a circular food system is. And a circular food system, rather than food going directly to the garbage, they are instead used to either feed people who would need that food, or to be processed into another product, or to go back in the soil so that agricultural producers can then produce more food, rather than food going directly to be disposed of, which is what happens in our current linear food waste system. So what is our goal? Our goal, as mentioned previously, is to create a circular food system to ensure that all food produced goes to feed people, animals, and the soil, delivering profits and food security with the lowest climate and environmental impacts to the benefit of everybody in Maine. So I want to give a little bit of background on this map and resource locator tool. This was originally launched as part of a graduate class in 2022. Input was sought from various Maine food system stakeholders, and this course, which I was a part of, compiled the initial data sources and created a variety of different GIS map elements. From here, I've continued to work on this project to really refine it and turn it into a product that can be used by everybody. So I want to talk a little bit about the various data sources that we compiled to make this data set. There are quite a bit of data sources. There's the US Census, there's the US EPA, there is the USDA, there is Maine GeoLibrary, there's Maine Farmers and Growers Association, there's the Maine Federation of Farmers Market, there's the Maine Food Atlas, there's a Good Shepherd's Food Bank, and there is Feeding America. In addition to compiling all these resources, we really wanted to reach out to the community and stakeholders in order to get their input onto what they see as a good food system. So we reached out to the Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Agricultural Conservation and Forestry, Maine Food Rescue and Recovery, Maine Food Recycling, etc. And we've continued to reach out to continue to develop this system. So what does this map look like? So the following map shows the Maine Circular Food Systems Opportunities Locator. And on the left, you have the food insecurity map, which shows levels of food insecurity from the Feeding America data set. And then in the middle here, you've got an estimation of annual excess food waste that was calculated based on population metrics and statistics from the USDA. These were further refined based on information from our stakeholders that wanted to kind of know like what effect that tourism in Maine would have on these values. And then finally, we got this final map here, which is this excess food opportunities and food insecurities. And these red circled areas are areas where both of these are high. So the advantage of this map is we can then look at these areas and we can really drill down. And this is our second level of the map where, oh, we now know that Houlton, Maine is an area of high food insecurity and high food waste. So we can search the legend, and from here we can see that you're able to click and filter the data in order to come up with new insights regarding the data. So for example, in Houlton, Maine, you know that there doesn't seem to be very many farms in the area, and that there are 2 food pantries that could be used to drop off unwanted food, and that there are 9 restaurants, which could potentially be big generators of food waste. I would like to thank everybody who's worked on this project.
Hello everyone, my name is Julian LaScala.
And I'm Sandesh Thapa.
And today we're going to be talking to you about the influence of woody biochar as a mediator on the reduction and removal of poly and per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, uptake in 2 vegetable crops, lettuce and tomato, in our paired field and greenhouse study. Before I begin, I'd like to thank our advisors, Dr. Ling Li and Dr. Yan John Zhang, and our sponsors for funding this research. This is a brief video we made just to give a brief introduction as to what PFAS are. So, what are PFAS, how they get into our bodies, and how they get into our soil and our land? They get into our bodies through things we use on a daily basis, like our non-stick cookware, our clothes, and our furniture. And then everything we apply to our fields typically has PFAS in them. So our fertilizer, our compost, our pesticides and herbicides. And why do we care? Because it can cause a variety of health effects such as breast cancer, testicular cancer, and kidney cancer. So right over here is a diagram of a tomato plant. We have long chain PFAS, which have a carbon length greater than 8. And we have short chain PFAS, which are the stars, long chain ones in the circles. You can see there's a lot more long chain ones in the soil than there are in the plant. This is because as chain length decreases, the plant can uptake more PFAS. So shorter chains, we see more in the plant. And right over here, we have a picture of biochar. You can think of biochar like a sponge. The more pores it has, the more it's able to bind and stabilize PFAS in the soil, preventing uptake. And our study is unique because there's a lot of studies that have done just biochar and PFAS as a removal, or just plants and PFAS as a removal, but there's not been a combined study. And we hope that this can allow farmers to go back to their profession in a safe manner. These are our goals and our objectives. And this was done at the field study, was here at Sue Hunter's farm in Unity, Maine. And this was at the greenhouse was Cooperative Extension here in Orono. Our treatment, we had three. We had a control, which was 6 inches of soil. We had a soil treatment, which was a dilution, which had 10 inches of soil. And then we had a biochar treatment, which was 6 inches of soil and 4 inches of biochar.
Thank you, Julian. Yeah, talking about the biochar properties, we can see on the top right, there is the figure that tells us about the properties of the biochar, basically the absorption mechanism. Biochar can absorb both the long chain and short chain PFAS, but the magnitude is different. Basically, the long chain PFAS is absorbed by hydrophobic interactions. The short chain PFAS are absorbed by electrostatic interactions. So we're trying to figure out how much of the PFAS can be absorbed by biochar and the diversity of biochar that's being absorbed by the PFAS molecules. One thing I would like to stress on here at the properties is surface area correlation. You can see a very high surface area correlation of 365.
If you use the mouse to point on the keyboard, yeah.
Yeah, the
because
surface
virtual
area
people can't
correlation
see.
is 360 meters square per gram for dry biochar. So it basically says it's a high surface area. That is the amount covered with the 1 gram when you spread them in the field. And one thing I would like to stress on is the particle size distribution. That is, most of the PFAS, they have the particle size less than 2 mm, which represents the fine biochar. And this is our greenhouse study design. Basically, we did the spiking for the transplanting of the crops, and we grow lettuce and tomato in a PFAS-free growing media so that we can track the amount of PFAS absorbed after transplanting. And for the field study design, you can see a lot of PFAS molecules in the field, which comes with a large diversity. And we selected field P and Q to study all the long chain, short chain, and more focused on the precursor molecules. And we collected the samples for biochar, soil samples, and leachate samples for both the greenhouse and field study, which is to quantify the PFAS movement across different regions. And what we're expecting to see is biochar can absorb a lot of PFAS in soil, so that it can reduce its uptake in the plant tissue, so which cannot in our food table. So we are working on that, and we're still waiting for our results. So these are not typical results; these are something we're expecting to see. So hope we could get some good results and continue this study. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the next presentation is by Karina Cortijo-Robles.
Here we go. So hi everybody, my name is Karina Cortijo-Robles. My last name is the hard part of my name, but I did an internship with Mitchell Center over the summer, and I'm going to talk briefly about that. So my internship, the title of my internship was Resilient Infrastructure, Bank Stabilization. So here's the team. I was the intern, but I have some amazing faculty members, mentors, Lauren and Jessica here from UMaine. Also partner leader, Nathan Robbins from Maine Department of Environmental Protection, Joe McLean, also from DEP, and Parker Gasset. And just to give you an overview, this internship began first in 2022 with Melissa. She was the intern, and she explored how we can define nature-based solutions or green infrastructure. And she did an amazing report by the end of the internship, where she recommended creating training modules or just materials for people to start thinking about the use of nature-based solutions for living shorelines. So what I intended to do for the summer internship in 2023 this year was to establish clear guidance for the regulated community on shoreline stabilization and help build out a training module within DEP 9-Point Training Center. To do that, I don't have all the knowledge. So I did some roundtables with DEP agency staff, engineers, and contractors. So the main objective was to create materials that can help us to understand how we can do bank stabilization using nature-based solutions. So in those roundtables, I asked about what are the best materials, what we can do better, what we can improve. So the first material that we created was the checklist. It's a really, really brief document about how we can start thinking about nature-based solutions for shoreline erosion. And we use these acronyms here, or SHORE. I love it. It's really engaging. It's the fun part. And first, this checklist will impulse you to do like a site assessment, and then you will do, oh no. Okay, perfect. And then there's a selection part where we intend for people to start thinking about nature-based solutions instead of great infrastructure. So here's the checklist. There's like a sketch, the site conditions and potential solutions. And for future steps, we're still incorporating feedback from the other agencies. Also, we created the Maine Shoreline Stabilization Guide. It's a more comprehensive, detailed document. I focus on trying to write the part of section 5, that is the case studies. And for the case studies, I'm trying to present successful projects of living shorelines. I'm trying to stipulate like the use of nature-based solutions for bank stabilization in Maine. So we have examples from Sebago Lake, for Farmington, Maine. And for me, that was a really interesting part to write. I sat down with multiple people, not only from academia, but for other agencies. Also, we created this annotated bibliography. So if homeowners want to submit a permit for DEP to start thinking about a project of using green infrastructure, they can come here in this annotated bibliography and use those resources as support for the permit and all this stuff. So thank you all, and thank you for my mentors. They were amazing, and working with an interdisciplinary group is really hard. But I think it was amazing. Like all my life, I think I have been involved with academia, but not with other agencies. And just having the opportunity to explore Maine Department of Environmental Protection was a pretty eye-opening experience for me, because they do a lot. And just trying to incorporate the feedback of all of those people, you know, I think that's society, right? It's not a linear process. You have to hear the feedback from multiple people. So that was great. Thank you.
My name is Rachel Freer, and I'm a senior environmental studies major at Dartmouth College. And I've been working to put together an undergraduate honors thesis investigating the influence of municipal shellfish management on the motivation of clam harvesters to participate in resource conservation efforts. So as some of you may have noticed, I'm not a UMaine student, and I did not grow up as a Mainer. So that being said, I had the opportunity to live and learn in Maine as part of a 3-month environmental studies program that was centered around community-based resource management. I came into this experience very aware of my unfamiliarity with these complex systems, and have since committed to absorbing as much information as possible from a diversity of perspectives and epistemologies. While traveling around the coast, I was able to learn from experts and involved community members about the issues of Maine's blue economy is facing due to climate change. This was the first time I had the opportunity to shape my research process alongside community members in efforts to reciprocally give back to the people who are kind enough to share their knowledge with me. After this intensive introduction, I left my study program with one main question. I quickly came to understand that local people's place-based ties to the coast and its fishing culture are alive and well. However, there seems to be a big disconnect between the value resource users attribute to Maine's fisheries and their motivation to participate in formal conservation practices to improve the system's long-term sustainability. In the following term, I was introduced to the psychological theory of motivational crowding as it has been related to behavior surrounding environmental conservation. So this concept is based on the assumption that humans have 2 main motivational categories that prompt action. The first is extrinsic motivation, which is rooted in getting rewards or satisfying requirements. And the second is intrinsic motivation, which is rooted in the innate value a person holds for an outcome. And so the theory argues that when policies are misaligned with community level priorities, establishing extrinsic incentives, regulations, or requirements to help motivate positive action can actually work to degrade intrinsic motivation for performing that behavior. So this immediately clicked as a potential pathway that could help explain the trend I was seeing in Maine. With these initial research questions rolling around in my head, I started to draw upon experts to get guidance. So I was able to connect with a PhD candidate at UMaine, Sarah Risley, who works with the shellfish system and suggested its potential fit as a case study for my questions. So Maine's Department of Marine Resources allows for towns to write and declare their shellfish management plans with ordinances that define the structure of their committees and the associated conservation goals. Because there's so much variation in the way towns establish conservation requirements in their respective shellfish programs, I saw an opportunity to explore the efficacy of different shellfish committee involvement levels. With widely acknowledged lack of participation in conservation activities shown by shellfish harvesters across the board and contacts to help me broaden the scope of my study, I started planning for my data collection phase. While still very eager, I wanted to again slow down to look for guidance from people who had been working in these communities for much longer than I have. So I got more feedback from researchers at UMaine, as well as representatives from the Department of Marine Resources to help centralize my research and the intention to be applicable to current community level discussions. These first conversations not only resulted in the co-creation of my central research questions, but they also helped me to establish legitimacy and build rapport with local leadership and community members. As my reach broadened through referrals and introductions, I started to map out the route I would take for my key informant interview field research phase, which is shown below. So throughout August and September, I had the opportunity to conduct extensive in-person and Zoom interviews with a variety of actors in the system. My interview protocol focused on asking very broad questions and getting at the lived experience of working within the shellfish co-management system. And in total, I was able to complete 25 scoping interviews that facilitated my understanding of the issues and local clamming rhetoric that helped me develop a shellfish harvester survey. The survey intends to address the following questions that were refined in part by my community partners and interview subjects. So the first is looking at the degree of involvement of different shellfish harvester programs and how they influence harvesters to willingness to participate. The second is evaluating if current policy measures are affecting clammers' intrinsic motivations to contribute. And third is how we improve state level and local level policy to better align with harvester perspectives. So after getting final feedback from DMR, the survey has been open for the last 2 months and now has about 50 responses. And I've identified some preliminary trends through coding my interview transcripts. And once the survey actually closes, I also plan to look for statistical correlations between the type and degree of motivation harvesters exhibit and the level of involvement of their town shellfish programs. So when made openly available to local leaders and community members, this information could potentially help inform policy fit to maximize harvester motivations to contribute to mudflat stewardship efforts. So as I continue preparing to defend my thesis in the spring, I'll be working to clarify some main takeaways to then share back with the community members at Shellfish Committee meetings and at regional forums. So thank you for your time. And also a special thanks to my thesis advisors, Karen and Michael in the Mitchell Center for hosting this event.
Yeah, so the next talk is by Mac Mollner.
Hi, y'all. I'm Mac Mollner. I'm a second-year graduate student in the School of Economics. I'm studying resource economics and policy. And I'll be talking about the work I've been doing for the past year and a half on Browntail moth with a team here at UMaine. So we ran a survey this past summer. But before I get into what that survey was about, if you're not familiar with Browntail moth, this is what they look like as a caterpillar. They are what we call a trifecta pest in that they have ecological consequences, economic consequences, and human health consequences. So they have these microscopic toxic hairs that break off anytime they move, anytime the wind blows on them, that can cause a rash or cause respiratory issues. And so because you don't even have to see the brown-tail moth to get the rash, it's quite, and some people are very reactive, some people are less reactive, we're not quite sure why. It can cause a lot of impacts in that it can impact tourism as well as the ability of our forestry-based industries to operate effectively. And so they overwinter in nests. That is our typical kind of way management. Most folks clip what's available to them. But these nests that they overwinter in can have anywhere from 30 to 300 caterpillars. So you can go very quickly from having almost no caterpillars, no issue at all, to they're all over your house. You can't step outside without getting the rash. And warning, I'm about to show a picture of the rash. It's quite nasty. It can last anywhere from 7 to 10 days with, again, a range of severity. And folks can can be pretty desperate for treatment. Where part of what we're looking at in the survey is what kind of medical treatment folks have been seeking out, because we don't truly know the severity of the rash quite yet. And so I said we. So I'm part of a team across the School of Biology and Ecology and School of Economics. So my advisor is Dr. Mario Teisel, and then my co-advisor is Dr. Angela Mack. And so Angela runs the Browntail Moth lab here at UMaine, and with a PhD student from her lab, Devin, we developed a survey over the course of about a year and then distributed it this past summer. Additionally, we're all part of the One Health and the Environment NRT, which means we're trying to look at things through the aspect of that environmental, human, and animal health are all intertwined. And so that we need to look at these things to find comprehensive solutions so that we can make more effective policy and change. And so this summer, our 10,000 Maine households got a direct mail invitation to take our survey, but also we had an open call newsletter invitation, in which we had about 3,000 responses through. And so that survey featured questions like this, which is to help us understand what Mainers know about browntail moth, what they're doing about browntail moth right now, and what they want done about browntail moth. And in this, we ran 2 experiments. We had an information experiment to see if more information about different browntail moth controls made people more likely to like or dislike certain control methods, as well as a willingness to pay experiment, in which we varied contribution type, control method, control application, and the price point of that method, so that we can develop a willingness to pay model. And so we have some descriptive statistics now, of which I've pulled out a few. And then currently we're working on building a willingness to pay model, as well as analyzing the information impacts, so that we can kind of better create communicative materials, so that we know, are people accessing browntail moth stuff but not reading it? Or do they need better information available? Or like, do we need more widespread campaigns? And so 79% of our respondents experienced the browntail moth rash. Breaking that down by our samples, the newsletter had about 80% of respondents, which makes sense. If you got the rash and are really unhappy about it, it makes sense that you'd seek out the survey. Whereas about 60% of our male respondents had. Of those 79% of respondents who had the rash, 78% of it rated it moderate to very severe, with about 32% being in that moderate. And then again, 32% of our respondents experienced the last outbreak in the 90s. So browntail moth is a cyclical outbreaker. This one's been ongoing since 2015, but it says a lot that it spread so far from the last outbreak zone, and that we had this many respondents who kind of lived within that outbreak zone speak up here. And again, 64% of respondents reported hindered outdoor use. And this is important because we got feedback from the Forest Service and folks there about what questions they were interested in and what they thought of our survey before distributing. And we're hoping to kind of better inform policy in the future, basically on how people want browntail moth handled, and what they think of how it's being handled right now. And so here are some references. And then thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Swikar, Karki, a PhD student in School of Biology and Ecology. Today I'm going to talk about a solution towards the wild blueberries, where wild blueberries is connected to our hearts, and through the solution that will help to make the yield and the problems or the challenges that is faced by the wild blueberry. First, wild blueberries are just not a crop, but they are connected towards our hearts, and wild blueberry makes the connection towards the culture and is a source of a prosperity to the future generations. In Maine, wild blueberries plays a significant roles in its economy and cultural heritage. Wild blueberries is just not a simple crop, but it has a genetic diversity. So not as a different crops we cultivate, but wild blueberry needs different types of management practices. Problem faced by wild blueberries. In recent years, the yield of the wild blueberries has been decreased in size by 26% and 30% in its actual value in 2022. So these rates are fluctuating as a result of climate change due to the extreme weather fluctuations, heat waves, and erratic rainfalls. The next challenge that is faced by the wild blueberries is the water scarcity. About more than 70% of the growers who are growing wild blueberries don't have their irrigation system. So in order to cope these challenges, we need something special or something as novel solutions that help to grow the wild blueberries, help the wild blueberries farmers for the sustainability. So here we have found a solution for the wild blueberries farmers. It's a biochar. Biochar is simply a charcoal-like material that is derived from different biomass under a pyrolysis temperature in a limited oxygen environment. So biochar has a unique characteristics or properties just like high porosity, notable cation exchange capacity, low bulk density. So these properties helps to make the soil healthier and helps the wild blueberries to grow. In the left-hand figure, the biochar helps to improve the soil physical, chemical, and biological properties, where in physical properties, biochar helps in water holding capacity or increasing its pore spaces. In chemical properties, the biochar helps to enhance the nutrients or helps in providing the nutrients to the crop. And in biological properties, it will help the ability of the microorganisms to grow. So with the help of making the soil healthier, it will help the plant to grow and develop well. So why woody biochar in Maine? We all know that our state Maine covers around 89.1% of forest. That is the locally sourced wood biochar. So it's not just a reliable, it's an affordable resource. So when we integrate these biochars, we are just not growing it, we are using its sustainability. So biochar is a key to greenery and a resilient source for the agriculture. For this, we have two locations where we are doing this research. It's Blueberry Hill Farm at Jonesboro and then Township 25 at Cherryfield. We are using the RCBT. We are using the RCBT designs, and the plot size is 6 into 13 and the buffer is around 3. So let's move towards our results and outcomes. In this, we are mainly focusing on 3 different types: short-term, mid-term, and long-term focus, where in short-term focus, we are just providing the guidelines and ensuring the growers about the water stress management. And in mid-terms, we are shifting towards the eco-friendly practices. And in long-term, we are focusing on the environmental sustainability, creating a seamless environment for forestry, agriculture, and biochar. What are the benefits? The major 2 biochar producing industries and the 485 wild blueberry growers. Our project impacts, we are just developing interdisciplinary collaboration. That means we are bringing experts from the forestry, agriculture, and environmental science. Our stakeholders, they are not just the spectators, but they are the driving force.
5 minutes are up.
We are shaping the sustainable solutions, and our focus is problem solving at its core. At last, I would like to thank my advisors and the funding agencies. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Flynn, and I'm entering my 2nd year as an intern with the Mitchell Center's Food Rescue Maine, where my focus is on food recovery as a solution to the problem of food waste in the state of Maine. As part of my internship, we opened up a community fridge on October 30th in the Memorial Union on the UMaine campus. And it has since become a well-used resource in the past few weeks. So what is a community fridge? A community fridge is an accessible resource for anyone to use, where perfectly edible food that would otherwise go to waste is redirected back into the community. Community fridges serve as a tool to connect food excess where there is food need, with the mantra, take what you need, leave what you don't. In the United States, we throw away about 133 billion pounds of food annually. That's food that we invested our valuable natural resources in to produce and transport. That ends up in landfills where it emits methane, which is 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And when so many people in the United States are food insecure, it is imperative that we utilize this untapped food and redirect it back into our communities. The University of Maine already has amazing programs like the Black Bear Exchange Pantry that provides support to community members. But this fridge is meant to serve as a supplemental resource that's accessible because of the union's expanded hours of operation. We chose the Memorial Union as our location because it already serves as a community hub and has incredibly accessible hours from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. that works for students' busy schedules. We wanted to meet community members where they already were and to meet the food where it already was. But a resource like a community fridge only works when the community is aware of it and when the community is engaged. This is why the involvement of such a wide array of stakeholders and student groups has been crucial to its success so far. For the longevity of the fridge, we are focused on making sure that this resource remains a resource and not a burden on the stakeholders and institutions that support it. This requires identifying more community stakeholders to help support it and establishing a community fridge manager position that will continue monitoring the food input and maintaining the safety of the fridge for years to come. The path to opening this fridge began with a very generous grant from the Maine Hunger Dialogue. Then Sodexo, the University of Maine's dining service, was interested in this project in order to decrease their food waste and their own environmental impact while also providing support to the UMaine community. The development and implementation of this fridge required an interdisciplinary approach that acknowledged that this food waste problem is a climate problem, an economic problem, and a social problem, as well as combating the health and financial implications of nutrition insecurity. Involved organizations include environmental student groups and student groups focused on the social inequality issues like the Black Bear Mutual Aid Fund. Additionally, the UMaine Food Lab has started donating leftovers from their Food Fermentation Friday program to the fridge in order to provide more food from the community. And food waste and nutrition insecurity do not occur in a vacuum. To address these problems, it requires fully acknowledging the social, environmental, and economic factors that contribute to all of them. Food waste has more obvious implications for our environment, as Courtney Baker outlined in her presentation, but it also has an economic aspect to it, because decreasing the amount of food waste in our waste streams will cut down our waste hauling costs, specifically for universities that want to implement programs like composting or community fridges. And additionally, lack of nutritious food leads to chronic health problems in the United States that place a financial strain on the individuals themselves and on our health institutions. This project represents a rare opportunity to gather data. Community fridges, because of their broad hours and their stigma-free focus and the wide array of where they get their food, make it really difficult to track and measure their actual impact. Sodexo's sponsorship of this fridge and the easily traceable sources of food in the fridge create this unique opportunity to gather data. Through qualitative means like surveys, we can gather anonymous information on what types of community members are using the fridge and how frequently. And through measuring the amount of food we put into the fridge, we can also have an exact number of how much food we are redirecting from waste streams back into the people. And this data will provide important support for community fridges across Maine. We did not want this fridge to be a standalone project. With Maine's goal of ending hunger by 2030, we believe that community fridges are a way to achieve this goal, but we need data to support it. Nutrition insecurity is a widespread problem that impacts the health of Mainers. So with hospitals and political stakeholders interested in providing better nutritious options, a community fridge is a great resource. So I wanted to say thank you so much to the Mitchell Center, especially Ruth and Carol, for all of their support getting this going, and to Suzanne, couldn't be here today.
So first, wow, the fact that you guys all got done in the amount of time with quick presentations is really impressive. So one more. And Linda, welcome to the conversation. Let's have the students in the room come on up, and I'm going to get out of the way. And then we also have the students on Zoom. And Linda, do you want to get started?
Sure, thank you. Wow, this was just amazing. You all did such a great job. Courtney, food waste and loss in Maine. Scary statistics about food waste. You know, people said scary. And one of the questions is on holiday periods, is there more food waste? Is there less? Is that a time that people are open to the issues?
So the way we kind of determine I would assume that yes, holidays do generate more food waste. We were specifically, when I was talking about tourism and the impact of increased people in the state of Maine, we were specifically looking at the summer months, and we got a lot of really interesting statistics from the Maine Department of Tourism. And based on their stats of how much would each county's population increase during certain months, we are then able to use those population estimates along with a USDA value of about 1.91 pounds of food wasted by consumers each day to get annual food waste estimations. So yes, the numbers are really huge and it is a scary problem, but I think if people are aware of this issue, it's not such a scary problem to solve.
And one of the things that I think is just so helpful about your talk is I bet you everybody in the audience was thinking to themselves, what can we do? What can I do? How is this information helpful? So thank you. Very helpful. Now there's a question for Sandesh and Julian. Are you available? Okay, great. So PFAS uptake in 2 vegetable crops. So again, another thing that's important and a good video, scary video. People are interested in getting your slides, and we want to thank you for the treatment details that you provided. Like a lot of people in the audience, I have farmer relatives that do farming. How do we share this information with them?
Yeah, actually, we are working closely with the farmers, basically with MOFGA and Maine Farmland Trust, American Farmland Trust. So we have some conferences in the next year also. So we are working with MOFGA to share with the different sets of farmers at large. So after we receive some results and analyze them and test for the effectiveness of Biochar, we're going to release some fact sheets with the help of human extension papers. So yeah, we're working on that.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. Karina, are you here? Great. So communicating nature-based solutions for shoreline stabilization in Maine. Again, another very interesting, very important talk. What do you say when people say to you, well, what is a nature-based solution? What's the short answer?
I totally understand them because I didn't know what was like bank stabilization, nature-based solutions. I didn't know at first. Like I have an idea in my mind, but I couldn't get myself to understand the concept either. But some example that I use for people is that when you're traveling in the 95 or when you go to some rivers in Maine, you see like a pile of rocks. That's a technique that we call riprap, and it's grain infrastructure. Actually, people told me that, oh no, that's nature, just a pile of rocks near to the river, but it's not. Usually under that pile of rocks, you will have like some plastic. And now we have another problem with the all the plastic or microplastics in the water. So that's something that I tell people, and I'm just like, see, we need nature-based solutions. We need to have like we need to use vegetation or use like a more friendly techniques for bank stabilization. So that's why I usually use to talk with people about bank stabilization.
Great.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there was another question. Will there be any fact sheets available for the public?
Oh, okay. Hi, Linda. That's a good question, but a hard one. So we created these 3 materials, right? The checklist, the guide, and also we have the annotated bibliography. John McLean, that he is the director of the 9 Points Training Center in Maine Department of Environmental Protection, DEP. He was actually working with the fact sheets, but it is really hard because usually the public, the general public, is not the one working with the projects and nature-based solutions. So for us, it was really important to convince first the engineers and contractors, because they have that connection with the public, with the homeowners. So that's why we did the roundtables with the engineers and contractors first. And usually through then, probably we will get to the homeowners and the general public. But yeah, I think John McLean has some sheets for like a more broad public.
Thank you. Very interesting. Very interesting. Rachel? Great. So your talk on the influence of municipal level shellfish management systems, again, another just really interesting talk. And I bet if we went around the room and asked each person, what are 3 things you learned and how is this really helpful to you, people would have things to say from this. The motivational crowding theory, very interesting. I think you should give talks in a number of different psychology departments about that. And I'm speaking as a psychologist, but people were very interested in sort of research and the co-developed nature of what you were saying. So thank you. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that it's great to be working with kind of cross-disciplinary theories within like social ecological systems, but also bringing in psychology, and that theory has also been applied within like microeconomics, and it's just interesting to see such a flexible theory be applied to a lot of different systems.
Great, thank you. Mick Mollner, are you there?
Hi, and it's
Great.
Mac.
So talk on the perceptions and reactions to messaging on Browntail moth control among Mainers. Just really from the picture of the rash to the other items, people go, whoa. And what are the next steps for you?
Well, currently we're hoping to put out a manuscript in the future. That's a kind of technical report aimed at communicating what Mainers thought and what kind of some of the results out of our survey are. I'm more closely working on developing that willingness to pay model I mentioned right now. And the hope is to put out a paper with my team. So.
And we can't wait to see it. That's great. Let's see. And now we're up to
Swikar.
Swikar. Thank you. Thank you. So biochar, a sustainable solution to Maine's wild blueberry. So there were a number of things people noticed that were so great about your talk, like that the blueberry sector is a vital component of Maine's agricultural sector, the challenges that are faced, and the urgent need for sustainability solutions. How would you go about sharing what you're learning with farmers?
Yeah, it's good to know
And I'm
about it.
asking
Farmers
that,
are mostly interested about their soils because they said that the soils property has been declining a lot. So they want to something that will help their soil to become more healthier. So biochar is one of them that can just help in maintaining the soil health. So in all aspects, that's its physical, biological, and chemical properties of the soil. So as well as the men's land is occupied by mostly by the forests. So the men's forest industries can also have the transitive assets for changing their byproducts into the biochar. So the woody biochar can also help in the men's economy.
great. We want to learn more. We want to follow you around. It's great. Thank you. And then lastly, Kate, Flynn, are you
Yep.
still there?
Hi.
Okay, on the Black Bear community fridge. So, just so many interesting things about feeding people, not landfills. So much food is wasted annually. So interesting. So do you have one recommendation for us for what we can do? Research we could do, steps we could take, ways we could talk to others about your talk?
Absolutely. Not to make it all about community fridges again, but it really takes, if you find a few other people, because most of the fridges in Maine that are community fridges were founded because a couple people got together and they realized they had the shared interest where they recognized the need for food in their community. They recognized the waste that was occurring in local businesses and in local homes. And they decided to get together and start a fridge. You don't necessarily need an institutional partner like we found in the Sodexo Humane Dining Services. You can also work with your local town governments and establish this. The Food Donation Improvement Act and the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act provide protections for people to get together. So if you found two friends and a spot, you could open your own community fridge where then your neighbors could, if they had rotting bananas on their counter, they could make banana bread and give it to somebody else. So it's a great way for communities to be empowered.
I thank you very much. I know that we're out of time and David may have some questions, but one thing that is just so important, all of us that are here today, if we can think of 2 or 3 or 4 people we can tell about the amazing future that's right here, just all the interesting things that we have learned and the talent that was on the screen and in the room. So David, last words?
Well said, Linda. And I just, I'm amazed that we could cover that much. I have my own list of questions that I'll try to figure out how to ask some of you later on. I just want to thank everybody for being part of this in the Zoom audience and right here in the room. Thank you.